friends, welcome to week 2 of the George Formby technique lessons, and this week we are taking a dive into what is probably his most popular and influential technique, the split stroke. As we talked about last week, in Formby's playing, there are highly syncopated rhythms, but when we look at these rhythms on the page, they're generally just a string of straight eighth notes. What gives them this unique syncopated feel, or a feel that falls off of the beat, is the split stroke, which is a very unique strumming pattern. So how did he do this? In this video, I'm going to break down his most popular split stroke pattern, as well as 2 other variations that he would frequently use. So let's look first at where the new accented beats are. Last week we talked about straight eighth notes, right? We always have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So to make this syncopated, we need the accents to fall off of the beat. So in this first split stroke pattern, we are going to take the accents and we are going to put them on beat 1, the end of beat 2, and beat 4. So if we clap this out and subdivide the eighth notes in our head, it will sound like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Let's try that together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. It's important for us to feel where those accented beats are so that this rhythmic pattern doesn't get too overpowering or too complex when we think about it with the strumming pattern in there. So let's strum that now just on a C major chord, and this will all be downstrokes. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Once we have these accents in our head, then we are able to build this very unique strumming pattern around them. But before we break down this pattern, let's talk about the unique right hand technique that George Formby used while he strummed his solos. Much like with standard uke playing, he would strum them with his index finger, but what was unique about the way that he held his hand is that he'd brace his thumb ever so lightly behind the first finger, giving it a little bit more rigidity. This allows us to play with more power, but also with a bit more precision, which will become very important a bit later on in this lesson. So now let's talk about the strumming pattern itself. If we put down just a C major chord, open, 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 3, the strumming pattern for this is going to be like this. It will be down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up. What was unique in his playing were these double downstrokes, and this puts our hand in a position where we end up having these full strums on offbeats, our syncopation that we just talked about. So let's walk through this pattern together, and let's just say the down and up strokes while we play it. So it'll go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up. So let's try that now on our root position C major chord. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, as we strum through like this, you'll note that it doesn't really quite sound like what I played at the beginning of this or what George does in his solos. And what we need to talk about now is isolating individual notes. What the split stroke does is utilize the reentrant or high G tuning of the uke to enable us to play these accented patterns and moving melodies across the outside strings. Whenever we have an upstroke in our split stroke pattern, we will do our best only to hit our A string. If you happen to hit your E string in there as well, it's not a big deal, but we want to make sure that we're not coming all the way through our strings. And likewise, whenever we have a double downstroke, the first downstroke will just hop off of our G string, and then we will strum all the way through. Let me demonstrate that for you nice and slowly. So if you listen closely, where we are strumming the full chord is where our accented beats are that we talked about at the beginning. So let's try this strumming pattern together. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're beginning to really get the feel of what the split stroke is and the correct sound out of it. But there's one other thing that we need to talk about in Formby's playing, and that is what are called finger lifts. He would voice standard position chords, like our C chord, but he would change the note on one of the strings so that we have a moving melody throughout. And in this case, we're going to play our C major chord, and we're going to go back and forth between a C and a C7th chord. And that's going to give us a moving melody that sounds like this. So where do we pick up and put down this third finger? We're going to strum this every time that we have one of those accented notes. So our full down strum is going to be a C major chord, and everything else will be just our C7th chord. Let's try that together nice and slowly. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. While this is the most used of Formby's split stroke patterns, you can really move this double down stroke to start on any beat that you would like, and thus displacing the syncopation to other places in the bar. If we look at the solo of our Sergeant Major, it actually begins with the double down stroke coming on beat 4 as opposed to beat 2. Let me play these first few measures for you so you can hear how the syncopation sounds. So let's try that little bit together, starting the double downstroke on beat 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now the Our Sergeant Major solo also has a second variation on the split stroke. In the bridge section of this over the A minor chord, it begins with our standard split stroke starting on beat 2, but in the final bar of that line, we continue the double downstrokes for an extra measure as opposed to resetting at the beginning, so it becomes truly a 2-bar pattern. Let me play this for you so you can hear it. The first 3 measures are our standard split stroke, and then we just continue the double downstrokes through measure 4. So you can see that that displaces our syncopation just a little bit more. Now let's try that one together. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now last week we went through the harmony and the chordal structure of the Our Sergeant Major solo, and all of the chords remain exactly what we were strumming last week. The rhythms are identical. We are just using a new strumming pattern to go through this to give it our syncopated feel. Let's try this entire exercise together. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. once you're comfortable with these basic variations on the split stroke, go back and challenge yourself to start the double downstroke on any beat that you so choose. This is what George Formby was truly the master of, was starting these double downstrokes on different beats and thus displacing the syncopation throughout the bar. It wasn't that he was playing anything rhythmically complex, he was just accenting different notes, giving the illusion of syncopation. Join me here next week and we will break down the two different types of triple strokes that George Formby used in his playing. I'll see y'all then.